Concerning Roger Stone, a judge has gone ahead and imposed a gag order on the former Trump confidant who posted a photo on Instagram of the judge with what appeared to be the crosshairs of a gun. And she's not taking any of that lightly. Catherine Harridge with more on this. Catherine.
Well, Neil, this was really a crisis of Roger Stone's own making that began a few days ago when he posted on Instagram a photo of the judge in this case, Amy Berman Jackson, with what appeared to be a target or a crosshairs in the background. He reposted that without the target in the background, ultimately took it down, and then was called to court today, where he spent over an hour on the stand answering questions from the judge, from his own lawyers and the prosecutors about whether these Instagram posts were a violation of the court's direction not to engage in activities that could end up threatening individuals involved in the case. And the judge has just told Stone that here on out, he is not allowed to speak publicly about the case on social media, on TV, on radio, and significantly, he is not allowed to do that through third parties or surrogates. So there is now a total gag order on Roger Stone. The judge also said that his explanation to the court that he was under extreme financial and emotional stress and he accepted responsibility for this action, according to the judge, rang hollow. And she made the point that it wasn't just about the social media posts from Roger Stone, it was about how those kind of images and messages could incite others to commit acts of violence that were related to the case, Neil.
So she could have been tougher still, right? What do you think happens now? Now, he's been making the media rounds. He cut back a little bit, but now he's got to be Operation Silence, right?
Well, I think the judge is taking a very traditional approach, which is she's making incremental modifications, at least at this point, to the gag order. The next step would be some kind of modification of the terms of his bail. But I think the judge is taking sort of what I would counsel as a wise and incremental approach to punishing Stone for what she sees as actions that really could have incited violence against herself or others in this case, Neil.
You know, obviously he's been the loose cannon. His reputation is such. He speaks his mind, sometimes goes overboard here. But this judge seems to be saying right up front, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be doing that, period.
Well, that's right. And Stone had made the argument to the judge that he makes his living off of being in the media, being on TV, and this was one of the ways that he generated income for himself. And he testified in court today that he has seen his consulting business dry up. He's basically wiped out his savings, and for all of these reasons, he's under extreme emotional stress. But that was just not enough for the judge to say, okay, I'm going to allow you to continue with some of these activities because it's how you make your living. So again, a very incremental approach by the judge, further restrictions on the gag order that stops Stone from publicly talking about the case or authorizing third parties to do so on his behalf, Neil.
You know, Kevin, I had the opportunity to talk to you about these new reports here that the Mueller investigation could be wrapping up very soon, maybe as soon as next week. Have you heard anything more on that and all the ancillary cases attached to it like this?
You know, there have been a lot of moving pieces, especially today, Neil. Number one, we've got confirmation that the president's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, will be on Capitol Hill for back-to-back hearings next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, on the House side, on the Senate side. But the most important day is sandwiched in the middle, and that will be Wednesday. That will be public testimony in front of the House Oversight Committee. But there are going to be restrictions on what we hear from Cohen. He's going to be asked questions that speak specifically to the case that has arisen in the Southern District of New York. So that's things like bank, tax fraud, campaign finance violations, and then the hush money payments during the campaign. The other thing that's happened is we've seen an acceleration of the timeline in the Manafort case for sentencing, not only here in Washington, D.C., but also in Virginia. And people who have read the tea leaves see this as another indicator that the special counsel investigation is winding down. Our own reporting, our contacts say that this is really the end game now, and the report could come in days or weeks. They don't foresee it as being longer than that, in part because a number of data points have finally aligned. The new Attorney General, William Barr,
you can see,
now
you can see Roger Stone now leaving the courthouse. The judges said, you know, the gag order is in effect. Don't talk to anybody, and he is not. He's going right out to a waiting van. Let's watch. Sometimes he does the Nixon arms raised in the air. None of that. He's in the car and away he goes. To your point, Catherine, I'm sorry to interrupt you with that. He's sticking to those orders, isn't he?
That's right. Well, the partial gag order, just to be clear, prevented him from making, or his team from making statements on the courthouse steps. So we didn't really expect to hear anything from Stone today. But, you know, the silence with reporters is not second nature to Stone. And he is obeying the new order from the judge, which completely shuts down any media contact or statements about the case.
Well, since the arrest of longtime Donald Trump advisor Roger Stone, the press has rallied around the people who arrested him and around a very specific interpretation of events. It was completely justified, they say, for the FBI to show up with enough armed agents to overthrow a Central American country. And if Stone says he was upset by all that, well, he must be lying.
FBI had information that he might try to destroy evidence, so they went in, I think, with an appropriate level of apprehension.
They had every reason to believe he was going to destroy evidence. He had threatened witnesses, or a witness at least, and he was playing hardball back.
How does this differ from other people surrounding a house for a raid from the FBI? I don't think it's that different. Right. By the way, the guy spent the entire day in front of news cameras. Clearly he was traumatized.
Who would put that mud guy on TV? I mean, it's really just a disgrace, I would say. The former CIA director John Brennan, speaking of disgrace, insinuated that Stone was Hannibal Lecter's long-lost cousin. Watch this.
What happened with Roger Stone was in keeping with the standard operating procedures of the FBI. They were conducting an arrest and executing a search warrant. And let's not forget, Roger Stone has a fair amount of sort of unstable activities and comments that he had made. Stealing someone's dog, telling somebody, Randy Credico, prepare to die. This is not somebody that you want to trifle with.
You don't trifle him. Now, Brennan, the guy you just saw talking, once lied to the public, you, me, and the rest of us, about killing civilians with drone bombs. But that's not a big deal, really. He's still got a cable contract. So what does Roger Stone have to say about the coverage of his arrest? Well, we're going to ask him. He is on the set tonight. Roger Stone, thank you for joining us. Aren't you under a gag order?
No, actually, the judge said today that she's considering one. She asked for the government and for my attorneys to submit their thoughts about that. I'm going to refrain from speaking about the specifics of the indictment because I think I have addressed it to the extent that I'm going to. But I'm very interested in what's happened here because one of my neighbors has now signed a sworn affidavit who was out walking their dog, and the CNN crew, their truck, showed up roughly a half an hour, 35 minutes before the FBI. I live on a dead-end street. The street was sealed, but they were allowed to stay in position right in front of my house. Now, if I was dangerous, which is the premise of this raid, why were they allowed to stay within the danger zone? Why were they put in harm's way? The idea that I'm a flight risk is ridiculous. I don't have a valid passport. Although I support the Second Amendment, I don't own a gun. There were no firearms in the house. And I've been under investigation for 2 years. So what information did the FBI have that I would destroy evidence? Why would I wait till...
Well, I don't know. Friday? John Brennan, who is a liar...
John Brennan,
but he says you're a dog kidnapper.
Well, look, again, that's in the indictment, and I will address it at an appropriate time because it's not true. But first of all, I've written extensively on animal welfare rights for the Daily Caller and have worked very hard to stop the government from conducting inhumane scientific experiments on dogs and cats. But I
mean, you're a dog lover of the first water.
But more importantly, John Brennan perjured himself twice before the Congress, once regarding the role of the Steele dossier and the FISA warrants, and secondarily regarding his breaking into the computers of a Senate committee looking into illegal torture by the CIA.
Yeah, just lying about killing people with drones. Not a big deal.
But
okay?
he's not being prosecuted like Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, Mr. Wray. General Clapper, of course, who said that, well, no, there's no metadata collection process. And then, of course, Hillary Clinton herself.
So
all those people have perjured themselves, but I'm being prosecuted for perjury.
Well, they never gave the finger to the man, though. And that may be your main crime, in my view. But let me ask you about the day of the arrest.
Yes.
So that was, I guess, a week ago today. You said that CNN remained within the security perimeter.
Yes.
During a raid that clearly they must have considered dangerous because they had automatic weapons. At least one arresting officer had 2 rifles with him and a sidearm. That's a lot of guns. How do you think CNN was allowed to stay there? How does that make sense?
I don't know, and I hope Senator Lindsey Graham and the House Republicans will get to the bottom of that, because I'd like to know who signed off on this raid. I mean, look, the main reason that the gag order concerns me is because I need to be able to raise the money to mount a defense.
Right.
They have unlimited taxpayer dollars, 3 platoons of Ivy League left-wing lawyers to prosecute me. They have just given us an enormous amount of material in discovery that we have to go through, 3 terabytes according to their press release. Unless people can go to stonedefensefund.com, and unless I have a forum to promote it, I can't possibly raise enough money. So I don't understand,
on what grounds could they just end your First Amendment rights?
Well, they, as you know, they gagged Paul Manafort in his trial because I would be prejudicing witnesses. Pardon me, I'd be prejudicing a jury. Well, that was the whole purpose of this raid, was to poison a jury, to hold me up as public enemy number 1.
To use a cable news channel as a PR operation to get their message out. So if they gag you and take your First Amendment rights away, does that mean that they're no longer allowed to leak to CNN against you?
Well, it's an interesting question, but the whole purpose of the gag would be so I don't poison a potential jury pool, but they've just poisoned a potential jury pool by making me look like El Chapo or Pablo Escobar.
But so it just seems a little bit one-sided. So they can arrest you with overwhelming force and automatic weapons and armored vehicles and stun grenades, and then they can force you not to speak in public, but they can still say whatever they want about you to news organizations
and leak. I mean, 2 years of leaks, as you know, that I was going to be arrested every other Tuesday, has destroyed my business. The censorship of my show on InfoWars and the censorship of my Facebook page has hurt my book sales dramatically. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. So this is part of the plan, destroy you financially. So like General Flynn, you have to plead guilty to something you didn't do.
Unbelievable. Well, you're always welcome on this show, gag order or not. Roger Stone, thank you very much.